Hello. It's been a long time. Some of you are watching this because you're taking my first year writing class, and I said I would talk about some of the readings for this week online. And some of you are subscribed to this channel, and a video has popped up for the first time in a very long time. So, hello to both of you. I hope everyone is staying healthy and doing the best they can given these sort of catastrophic times. Super quick life update for those of you who haven't seen me in forever. I'm still getting my PhD at the University of Minnesota. I'm in year 4 of 6, hopefully. I'm also pregnant with my first child, so it's a weird time to be expecting a small child in this world, not due till July, so we'll see how things are going then. Today I'm going to talk about 2 essays that I've assigned to my students this week. The first is an essay by Peter Elbow called The Shifting Relationship Between Speech and Writing. And the second is an essay by Kylie Letty. It was published in the New York Times last spring, and it's called Years Ago My Sister Vanished. I See Her Whenever I Want. Both of those essays are linked in the comments below, so if you're not in my class and don't have it in a course packet where you can read along, you can still read along if you want to. So the first essay that I wanted us to talk about was The Shifting Relationship Between Speech and Writing by Peter Elbow. In this class so far, we've talked a lot about the ways in which writing is perceived as being sort of dead. You need to have a reader who's engaging with it for it to have any sort of life. Even some more extreme examples like Plato in a Socratic dialogue describing Socrates as expressing that writing is lifeless, that only speech, only dialogue can be a true representation of one's ideas and one's mind because it's living and because you can answer back to it. So in Peter Elbow's essay, he starts with the idea that writing is indelible, that it's unchangeable, and that speech is ephemeral, only lasts for a second and then it's gone, and sort of starts with that framework and then flips it upside down and is talking about all the ways in which speech is itself indelible. Once you've said something, you can't unsay it, in a way that if you're writing something down, you can erase it, or like until someone else has read it, there's a lot of flexibility in how it can be presented, or you can edit your own work before you say it out loud. This all gets very confusing in video. I'm saying all these things to the camera, and then after this I'm going to go through and edit out things that I don't like. For those of you who make video, you know that it's very difficult if you haven't said something correctly to try and piece together what you were trying to say through the footage that you have. That can get very messy, particularly relevant given the ways in which Trump, for example, is trying to revise what he has been saying about the coronavirus since January. There's a lovely Washington Post article that's sort of following the different things he's said in interviews over the last couple months. It is things that he's spoken often or tweeted. However, we're only able to hold on to it because not just because we remember it, because it's written down, and we have that sort of duality of it being both speech and writing based on how it's being expressed. Elbow then talks about a whole list of ways in which speech and writing are more similar than we usually think of them, and he ends with these beautiful descriptions of mentalities we can bring to writing or modes of writing that we can engage in. He gives these 3 example writers. First, I see a writer clenched over her text, writing very slowly, indeed pondering more than writing, trying to achieve something permanent and definitive, questioning everything, first in her mind, before she writes the phrase, then after she sees it on paper. He's presenting an intensely self-critical writer who is imagining that the technology of writing is separating her ideas from herself so that they should stand on their own, yeah? The second writer, he imagines, is in a fine frenzy, scribbling fast, caught up in her words, in the grip of language and creation. She is writing late at night, not because of a deadline, because the words have taken over. She wants to go to bed, but too much is going on for her to stop. And so there's this talk about sort of relinquishing control and having the process itself sort of scoot you forward in the work of writing. Such writing will likely be reconsidered the next day, that if the same writer were to write again the next night, they might contradict some of the things they had beforehand. It's very much a representation of how that person is thinking at that moment. And then the third writer he talks about, I see a writer at her desk conjuring up her audience before her in her mind's eye as she writes. She is looking at them, speaking to them, more aware of the sound of her spoken words in her ear than the sight of words on paper. She is involved with her discourse through being involved in her audience. Often her audience is a genuine community, and her writing grows out of her sense of membership in it. What he's saying about these three writers is not that one is better than the others, or that any one person is only operating in one of sort of these three modes, but that writing contains multitudes, that there are many ways of writing, and that very many different modes we can sort of shift through. And one of the things that I think I want to emphasize in this class, and hopefully is applicable outside the class too, is that sometimes it's helpful to have a period of time where you just write everything that comes to mind and just get it all out of yourself. And then other times where you really need to be thinking about how your writing engages with the larger community and the larger questions that your paper is asking. And other times it's really good to go through carefully with a fine-tooth comb and pay attention to every word, every sentence. How is that making meaning and representing yourself separate from yourself? How is your writing sort of standing on its own 2 feet? So I wanted to encourage you, as you're thinking about these three, even as you're thinking about what you do most often or what is most likely to be your mode of writing, you can also think about your other modes as well. So that's some thoughts about Peter Elbow. I hope that that's sparked some curiosity for you. The other essay is very different in tone. It is an essay written by a college student, but she tells the story of her sister who has vanished, continued involvement with that sister's Facebook page and with her cell phone, and the ways in which she's struggling to reach through technology to connect with someone who does not seem to be there. I've always found this essay very moving, immersive, and there's some really interesting things that it's doing with time, sort of circling back and looking at the same moments and ideas multiple times over. So for those of you thinking about your final papers and the ways in which you include personal narrative, maybe thinking about the way she's using time will be really helpful for that. But I found this essay especially interesting and moving right now, trying to seek real connection through digital means. There's a couple different moments that I wanted to bring up. The opening is especially lovely. It reads, "Don't worry," reads the cover photo of my sister's Facebook page. "Everything is going to be amazing." The words, in neon blue, green, and red, glow from the screen as a kind of preternatural promise, a message from beyond. When I'm feeling stressed, I click on her profile, gaze at that image, and take a deep breath. People leave notes, messages, and pictures on her page. They say, "I miss you," and "I love you," "I'm thinking about you." They can't leave flowers, but they do leave animated hearts. Sometimes they can even travel through time by responding to a comment of hers from years before, and a certain magic is created, a conversation extending across a bridge of years, transcending her absence. The page facilitates a continuation, an afterlife. We've talked a lot this semester about the ways in which books create an afterlife, a continuation of a conversation sort of beyond the limits of life and death, even writing back to authors, some of whom have been millennia before our lives, others of whom are still alive and still writing, and who we can interact with perhaps in some sort of real way as well. I'm going to also read some of the very end of the essay where she comes back to that original Facebook page. In the middle, she talks about a lot of other things, but here she says, "These days, there are fewer friends posting on my sister's page, not as many hearts. As Instagram surges and Facebook recedes, I wonder how long her page will remain active. It's sad to think that interest in my sister may depend on the relative popularity of a social media platform. For now, the photos keep her memory vivid, and I like the solidarity of knowing when others think of her and how they express that love. With absence comes forgetting, and Facebook helps me remember what I cannot bear to lose." She has a little description of some of the attributes of her sister that are still visible, and ends this way. Facebook cannot mimic my sister's flowery handwriting, remind me how she smelled when wearing her favorite perfume, or hug me the way she used to. But it can preserve the post she left on my wall 6 years ago that reads, "I love you." Sometimes that's enough. So, the questions I have for you, if you're watching, what are some of the ways that you're feeling the distance between your normal life and normal life experience and so much of your life having been transported online? If you're going to have connection, it's mediated through screens or through windows, sometimes physical, like waving at a neighbor through a window, or literally the window of your frame around you in a Zoom conversation or something. And I'm curious about what makes that seem real, what makes it seem enough. I know for me, this YouTube channel has always felt like a place where real connection can happen. And I hope that that's still the case, even if I'm showing up out of nowhere after a long time. Hope you all are well. Take care. Bye.